The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as investment, tax, legal, or other professional advice. All opinions expressed by the host or guest are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of QP Consulting LLC or its affiliates. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Listeners should consult their financial advisor or other professionals before making any investment decisions. QP Consulting LLC is a registered investment advisor. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training. For more information, including our disclosures and Form ADV, please visit qp-consulting.com. Hello and welcome to the Jagged Path with Mark Ivsevich, where we talk about people, careers, the U.S. retirement system, and the many indirect ways people move through their working years towards retirement. Today we have Lauren Weedman with us. Lauren is an actress, comedian, writer, director, and playwright, originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, and now residing in Santa Monica, California. She has been in well-known shows such as Reno 911, Hacks, Hung, Looking, Sirens, and according to your Wikipedia page, 100 plus productions. So welcome to the show, and thank you for joining me on the Jagged Path today.
Thank you. Now, when you say according to, do you think it's a lie?
No,
Wikipedia. I guess it could be, right? Because it's Wikipedia. It could
I don't
be.
know how accurate those things are, and I don't know who's updating that. I mean, have you put in entries or no?
No,
Okay.
no. You're right. Bunch of lies. But yeah, hello.
Thanks for being here. We're going to start with some way back stuff. The way I know Lauren was we grew up next door in one another. Um, and so I want to start there, and then we'll go into high school years and talk a little bit about money. So when I was preparing for this, I asked my mom her impression of you as a child, and she recalled the following. She said, Lauren was very independent and creative as a child. And at age 6, my mom said, you came over, knocked on the front door, and said, my name is Lauren Weedman. I'm 6 years old, and I'm adopted. Do you remember that bold?
That's all you need. No, but what else? What else do you need to know? I think that really covers it.
Well, I mean, it seems like an awfully bold
Age.
introduction for a 6-year-old.
No, I just knew what sold, like I knew what got attention. And so it's the same thing at school. They'd be like, what'd you do for summer break? And I'm like, I'll wait for that kid to talk about going to Florida before I drop my big whammy, which is I'm adopted. Just because I thought everyone always reacted like, oh. So I've heard that your brother Jay, who I also talked to recently, he was saying he remembered that as well. That sounds like a annoying child, but whatever.
If you think about your hobbies as a child, what were the things that maybe led you to do what you do today?
Being adopted,
That's all
probably
it
a lot
takes.
of sort of, yeah, basically a lot of showing off and a lot of, um, I don't know. I had a bunch of different theories of what led me to be such a performer type or entertainer, but I just felt trapped in everything else,
Okay.
I guess. Like everything that seemed like this is how you're supposed to be, this is how life goes, the rules of the household, everything just felt like, well, who wants to be a part of this army base? It felt too controlled or too this, and I wanted something where my energy and my I don't know, that it suited me. And plus being with all the weirdos and the outsiders and those types of folks was way more entertaining to me and way more a family, I guess,
This will
for
probably be the
myself.
less entertaining side of things. So when it came to money, what did your parents do and how did they retire?
Um, it, I was just talking about this. I was just quoting my mother. I had a meeting right before this, and I was telling my manager about how my mom was like always telling people like, Lauren just lives for today, not a thought for tomorrow, and she will nickel and dime herself to death if gone unchecked. Like, and she would write that to people if she like to teachers or something like, you got to watch her. She never, because they were very, very Midwestern stable of that era, just working. My dad was I guess a businessman, and because he worked when I was growing up, he was the managing director of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra.
Okay.
So not he didn't do the booking of the shows or whatever, but or working with the symphony. But he just did all the managing and a bit of the money stuff too. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom, then also worked off and on. Like she worked at a jewelry store for a long time, and
They
then
had a
just
kitchen,
super
then
stable.
they had a shop, right? Didn't her They had a shop.
We don't like to talk about that, Mark. We don't like to talk about that.
Yeah,
No, that was a money pit. That's what they're always talking about, how, like where it always struck me, and this is really, I shouldn't say this, it's really demeaning, where I'm like, the bored housewife who's like, I'm going to start a store and I'm going to sell bunnies, which is basically what it was. It just was so not my style. I was always, mocking it, and like, because I was so trying to be punk rock about things. But yeah, she had a holiday store, a year-round holiday store in the mall, big hit in the like and they used to send me such awful, well, actually they're awful gifts for all my friends. I'd be like, I got another gift for my mom, everybody come over, I'm gonna unbox it. It was before the time, and it'd be something like a Christmas themed sweatshirt before it was a thing.
right, right.
you know uh, yeah, but they were very, very I felt like we were in a very wealthy area, and that we were the poor of the wealthy is how I always thought, where I was like, how come they jaguars at the Ivzoviches, how come we don't get to have those things? And my mom and dad were always like, your dad is in that world with the guy who owns the Pacers and knows the mayor, and he hobnobs, he's a very PR person, but he does not make that kind of money. Yet I think we're in a really nice, like Leo, my son, can't believe that I had like a backyard and a front
Yeah,
yard.
yeah. Well, and you guys had a pace car too, which in Indiana was huge. Every May, you guys had a
Yeah,
pace
but
car.
that was cool. That was like, we take the pace car to go get ice cream and just like wave to people like we were in a parade. But that wasn't something, that was because he was on the board of, he was the chairman or something of the Indianapolis 500 festivities. And so we got the pace car because my parents were on the board.
Right.
But so it looked fancy for sure. But yet we didn't quite have we were very upper middle class, which seems really amazing now. Like, oh, I had it really good.
Well, and times were different there too. I think there was one other childhood thought that my mom imparted that I wanted to cover, which was she said that you were a bluebird along with my sister, and your mom was like the troop leader of bluebirds. And so my question was, did bluebirds have a healthy competition with Girl Scouts? And did you have some sort of money-making scheme that was cookie adjacent?
Wow, I don't, I get asked a lot of things, Mark, and no one's ever got into my Bluebird past.
Well, they should.
And it's uncomfortable. I'll tell you why. I don't remember it. I was blackout drunk then. No, I don't remember it because it was like, I think I was not a real big joiner. If I didn't get to like, I'm like, well, there'd be a time in the Bluebird meeting where I get to stand on the table and dance or sing or get a lot of attention. This joining of a group, ugh. No, I don't remember that except for, yeah, I don't even remember. I do remember that Kelly, your sister, was a part of it too. I just remember it wasn't my thing, and I definitely didn't want to do anything where my mom was in charge.
Right. Well, I mean, that seems
So
natural. And you going back to the
right.
house. So I think of this too. When listeners go to Indianapolis, they take the driving tour like you might in LA of the famous childhood homes. You might start down in kind of the, Broad Ripple area. You go by Kurt Vonnegut's house, you go by David Letterman's house. And then when Lauren Weedman fans come by 71st Street, and there's
The
now just a
gazebo.
plot of land and a gazebo that a former CEO of Eli Lilly bought and just expanded. One, do you have any sort of sentimental attachment to that plot of land? And do you encourage fans to leave flowers or signs, or what's kind of your preferred approach?
I like people to get married there, just out on the sidewalk. No, it's funny that that was such a big deal because when they decided, I was living in Seattle at the time, and they called to tell us that, or called me to tell me that they're selling the house to the Eli Lilly, the president of Eli Lilly, and Eli Lilly guy was buying all the houses around him simply to have more land. And I'm like, they're tearing it down. And sure enough, it was like a gazebo, was like the childhood home. And they sent me a brick. They were like, get all your stuff and here's a brick because we don't want to mow the lawn anymore. And they were so happy to have the money to go buy a condo. And then now they live in this little condo community where there's a lot of their old neighbors are also in that same community. The Bentleys, which you may recall, not to get too inside baseball here,
Yeah.
but a lot of, they sort of like picked up and went to a place where you don't have to mow the lawn. But that area is so, like, it's so, I can't believe how much money was there. But when I was growing up, I was a very, to me, besides your family, and I'm not kidding, I thought it was a lot of sadness and loss and things going on, a lot of big houses and a lot of stories behind that were, when I was in my teenage years, especially, I felt like there was a lot of suicides. And that, sorry, Mark.
That's
You're like, hey, let's keep it light, Lauren. Thought you were a comedian. But that's how I had a relationship with money that was like, sure, you're putting on a big show, but that cliche, I just remember learning that and at an early age, feeling like it may seem like this, but we've got bankruptcy on one side, we've got suicide on other two corners. And I was sort of always going to the dark part as I was wont to do, the more negative of it all. I know there's a lot of good, lovely things going on as well, but it was, complicated.
and there are some. I do think that a lot of people kind of the financial front that they may put out there is not necessarily what's going on behind the scenes. And as we talked a little, leading into this call, kind of things that can pile up on people, and I guess we can dig into that a little bit later. But I do want to keep
Well,
it
like the
slightly
bank.
lighter for a second. But
Yeah, but I have to say, Mark, that's the part with money. I do think it's a heavy subject, and for some people, if you don't have it, it can be the death of. You know what I mean? Like it's a real thing. I remember the people next door to us declaring bankruptcy, and the way my parents said it was if he's a mass murderer. They found 9 bodies in the basement. I was like bankruptcy, and I had no idea what it meant or what it was, but I was like for shame. But anyway, yes, yes. Ah ha ha.
so,
There we go.
okay, so on to high school years. So you were a North
Yeah.
Central Panther. Other famous alumni from North Central include athletes like Lars Tate, Eric Gordon, Derek Mays, and Cheryl Bridges, politicians like Mitch Daniels and Bart Peterson.
Who are any of those people? I don't know
Do you know
anybody.
actress Priyanka Chopra? She's married to a one of those brothers. She's a
Oh, I love those brothers. No, I don't know. So many brothers, so much trouble.
and
Brothers
oh,
sounds like they're bad
A
news.
Jonas brother. That's who she's married to. Um,
Wow.
and then Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, musician, right?
Who are these
You don't
people?
know Babyface?
Kenny, no. Oh, Babyface. Yeah, my son.
Ba-
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
and then spokespeople like Jared Fogle from $5 footlong fame and other unfortunate
Okay, you're
things.
not, you really don't look at the dark side of life. Yeah, you're gonna bring him up? Like he's a freaking molester. He's an awful human.
Well, that
He's a troubled man,
he
let's
is, and
say.
that brings me
Yeah.
into in the pantheon of famous North
Yay, North
Central
Central.
alums. Where do you think you rank?
I don't know. I don't, God, I don't go back. I don't know. I don't get asked it. I never got any awards or anything. Or my friend Kevin Wanzer, who is an alumni, he got like some. He's a motivational speaker, and he's won all sorts of like alumni of the century. You're the best, and I've never. I think they're like. I've been out of Indiana for so long. I don't know if I claim Indiana. I feel proud of it because of Kurt Vonnegut.
Right.
He's the one I'm always like. Kurt Vonnegut. That I'm proud of. I do like the race, the 500 race as well.
Well, and
I have to
that leads
admit.
into my next question, which they haven't brought you back, right, to mentor or any of the great talent from the North Side. Maybe they'll listen to this podcast and bring you
Let's
back
let's hope not. I'm just kidding.
because right, they want you to come back for free, right? Um,
Yeah, for free. My mom's still there. I've got family there for sure. But yeah, I don't. I know my dad really was upset that I had never been featured in the paper. But I think the kind of stuff I was doing on HBO was, the kind of stuff I do is the kind of stuff where you say, hey, that family, there's suicide over there. I do a bit darker, complicated stuff. I'm not just like a comedian,
right.
like, so I think it was more like, she'll be fun, but what will she say?
Yeah, I would think
Because that was,
looking and hung are don't really settle real well with that Midwest contingent. That
that's a real freaking shame because it's just like a gay show. That's
yeah,
it. And yeah, so I went home and nobody was that impressed. I've never felt like a big star or anything when I was in Indiana, which is just fine.
yeah. Now, what about college? Did you? I'm always interested when people. So you went to DePaul in Chicago, correct?
Yeah,
Did
yes, yeah,
did you study acting there or no?
yes, yeah. It was a theater school, DePaul Theater School,
Okay.
and I did that. I knew for sure I wanted to do that. I did that for a year. I got asked back. That was always the big thing. Do you get asked back or not? I got asked back, and then my parents, because of money, what they told me was money. They said that they had only, that's the other thing I could never understand. It's like, how can we be in this neighborhood and be living this, with pace cars, going to get ice cream,
Yep.
and yet not be able to afford college? And I'm like, why did they tell me ahead of time? And they were like, we didn't know that we basically spent 4 years, but we could have spent on IU, we spent it all in 1 year at Chicago. So that I pulled out and then I ended up going to IU and then I moved to Amsterdam. So I never finished college. I ain't educated.
Well, I remember that because Jay stayed at your place in Amsterdam, and I don't think ever saw you
That's right.
while he was there, or maybe he did. I kind of forgot the
I
story,
think I
but
was gone.
yeah,
I don't think I was just like out on the street or
correct,
something
correct. I should have
or
clarified.
hiding under the bed. Yeah.
So, at what point you come back stateside? At what point in your career did you say, "Hey, I can make a go of this financially. Like this can be a full-time gig"?
It was when I got to Seattle and I started to, it was a smaller theater community that really embraced me. And I started to write solo theater. Got commissions to write solo shows, which is kind of rare, I think. And I did shows about living in Amsterdam, about being adopted. You saw the one that went to New York.
Right.
And I just did a lot of that. And then I was on a local TV show that was a sketch comedy show in Seattle called Almost Live. And that was the first time. And I'm not a sketch comedy person. Like everybody else on the show had come up in improv Olympics and very improv sketch comedy comedians. And I was theater. Like I'd been in Amsterdam doing like weird theater experimental stuff and a bit more dark or whatever. And so when I got on Almost Live, I'm a full-time paid staff member of a comedy show. And that is when it sort of shifted where I was like, wow, I may be able to. And then I got on the Daily Show, like things just, but I think Seattle, the way that suddenly I had a career where I didn't have to do anything else besides what I wanted to do, which was theater and performing and
So that covered
that kind
covered
of
the
thing.
bills. You weren't having to bartend or do other things at that point.
No, I did when I first got to Seattle, which was a huge, like from Amsterdam, where they support artists. They just, even if you're foreign, they support you. I was legal, so not to get into that shit, but I, yeah, I made money in Amsterdam, being because you'd be in a play. It could be a bad play in Amsterdam. You still got paid and got health insurance and that kind of stuff. They considered theater to be a worthy cause and a worthy career. And when I got to Seattle, I was an intern, and I just assumed that I'd get there, and the interns must have another way. If they ask you to work full time, they must pay you something. And I never really asked about it because I just assumed. My first year in Seattle, I ended up going to the food bank, and it was me and there's another actor I saw online because I made like $50 a week as an intern, and suddenly it was so not taken care of in a way that Amsterdam or Holland had sort of it takes care of its people.
Yeah.
And I went from having a pretty awesome life in Amsterdam, living as an artist, to suddenly I was the bottom of the social construct, like with, I don't know who else I was with, but like just feeling like I was struggling all the time
Yeah.
until I started working in getting commissions in television and stuff.
And was the so that kind of is a good segue. So I'm hoping that the $50 a week was the least you've ever made. Is that the least you think you've
I think the least I've ever made is zero.
zero?
Yeah, you do a lot of work there's a assumption that it's like, well, it's theater or it's fun stuff. You're so lucky that you get to do it, that it's not always supported. So yeah, I'd say the poorest I was, most struggling, was I remember somebody who worked at the theater, gave me $300 to cover my rent at the time. So cheap. But it was a real shock to go from feeling like I was okay in the world and I could take care of myself. I was in my 20s still, to being like, whoa, in America, I am like, this is tough to be an artist here.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to work in wait tables until I moved to New York City. And then I had to kind of start over again, but that only lasted like a year. And then I got the Daily Show. So the world is it's been taking care of me a bit, like letting me know, like, you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing.
So you went from zero. What is, if you think through your entire career, like peak year, and you don't have to share this if you don't want to, what's the single highest earning year you've ever had?
Well, I had a really good year last year, which is insane since I had Bell's palsy and I was sick, but I continued to work and I was on Sirens and Abbott Elementary and Hacks. So I was on three very popular shows. And I did this, I last year was great. I could catch up with my bills. I could, pay for the health stuff I was going through and all that stuff. But before that, it was on Looking, and I was a series regular, and that's the golden ticket in Hollywood. Is you want to be a Sears reg, that's what we call it here. Sears reg, what a dumb sounding word. And it wasn't huge money, but at the time it was like 25,000 per episode. And to me, and I really thought I got a business manager. I started buying electronics in vending machines at airports. And my manager said to me, and pardon me if this is offensive, at the time it was funny and made sense to me, which is shows my age. My manager was like, "You spend money like a rap star. Like as soon as you get it, you're like, I get all my moms. Everybody gets an iPad." And it's true. I flew people if I was flying first class, I'd invite my family to come, and I'd fly them too. And I just thought it was always because they everyone tells you it's going to keep going,
Right.
and it did not. Like as soon as it was over, I was like in trouble because I did not know how to save. Nobody was there to advise me. I was single. I went through a divorce. So I really was sort of on my own thinking like, well, I'm special. I'll just sit here and be special.
Yeah, that's
So that
a
was,
tough spot. So the one thing I wanted to bring up you're in a unique spot that you have this Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG, AFTRA, but you have this pension plan that's been collectively bargained on your behalf. And I was looking up, basically it's from 2002 to 2008, you'd get credits if you made over 7,500 in annual earnings. And then from now on, from 2009 on, if you made over $15,000, you get credits towards that pension. Is that something like, I think we've talked a little bit about this, but have you looked at that? Is that going to be a big part of your retirement whenever that day comes?
I don't know. I've looked at it once seriously, and I do know that, well, no, twice. I remember in the very beginning when SAG-AFTRA, the two different unions, one was supposed to, we used to be like one was film, one was TV and radio stuff, and then they merged. When they merged, they didn't put all the points together. So I lost some, you know what I mean? Like I had like a media, if I would have had been able to combine both the points I had from both those, I'd be in a much better place. But I just sort of lost the stuff that was in AFTRA. And then it just became SAG was the main. I'm sure I'm not explaining this right because I'm not, as become very apparent, I'm not super bright about finance. It's a real problem. But then when I looked into it recently during COVID, when I was really panicked, um, and somebody told me like, get the money out now. SAG is having trouble. You better get your money out. Like somebody implied that they're like, see how many points you have in your pension thing. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, it's not that much. Like I work a lot, but I also work in different way. I teach and I, sell art and I still do theater, and those things don't all go towards pension. Those are all 10, those are 1090. Is that it?
1099
1099.
stuff. Yeah. And so you
Right,
can, I mean,
right.
if you look at it, I was going to compare this to your characters so that I think that this will help people. So in, let's see, so as Doris, you were a nurse. Is that correct in looking?
That's right.
Okay. And then Kristen Marie as working in a school district in Abbott Elementary, those folks would probably have 403B plans available to them. That's like the not-for-profit world's 401k.
Yes, that's what my sister is actually a teacher.
Okay. So
And so I've watched her handle her retirement so well, and she's doing really well, actually, having been a teacher for so long, just stable.
yeah.
And I'm way less stable, though I made bigger money and had a much more indulgent life of like, well, you have to get up early to be a teacher, not when you're just pretending you're one.
Right, that's true. That's true. And so
It's messed up.
there's a lot of equivalencies, and this is where I think we've made the system needlessly complex. So if we take Mayor Joe, for instance, in Hacks, what governmental employees would have is a 457B. So as mayor, she would have had this governmental 457B. Once again, very similar to what your sister has in a school district or what a nurse would have at a hospital. And then Patrice and Sirens, this is probably the closest to who you actually are. I think not as a person, right? But just in terms of retirement stuff, is that you'd have to fund an individual retirement account on your own, setting it up, or an individual 401k plan if you made enough money. As I doubt in a scenario where like the Julianne Moore, Kevin Bacon characters, wealthy household, they're not going to fund a retirement plan for their employees. You're all 1099 employees. So, long story short, there of explaining the many different ways that they're all essentially the same thing. There's different nuances and rules I won't bore the listeners with, but have you set up an IRA over the years, or sounds like not so much?
No, I have a couple glaring personality character flaws that I have had to come to terms with as a single mother. And I don't have, my parents never advised me about money besides just be better about it, save, save, save. And I was like, nope. And then also, every time I was married, I've been married 17 times, and each time, maybe a little bit less, But each time I was one who made more money. And so I was, we didn't really combine things. And I kind of went unchecked, because I was like, it's my money. I didn't say it like that. That sounds abusive, but I didn't really. And it's funny. It's sorry. I'm thinking about the fact that you mentioned my characters. I usually play blue working people. Like I never play the blue bloods or whatever. I'm always sort of uh, yeah, just blue collar. Do they still say that? Working
Yeah, I
people.
think so.
Uh,
I don't think that's
yeah.
derogatory in
Okay.
any
Now
way.
I lost my train of thought because I switched around there. I had two
Well, you were
sentence
saying you were
ADHD.
always the breadwinner. That's probably, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
said anymore either, but I do find couples a lot of times,
Is that offensive to bread?
I don't know.
Go
I
ahead.
don't think so. But like,
Just kidding.
couples don't
Yeah.
talk about money all the time unless you have, and this is from my experience the last 25 years, that just, one person kind of runs point and it's their thing. And
Yeah.
then the other's like, okay. But in a scenario like that, where you've been the breadwinner and you get divorced, now, did you have to ever pay support to your former spouse or spouses?
Oh no.
Okay.
No, never had to do that. Didn't have a kid the first time. The second time I did, yet I was I have such a I am the that's why I was a bit like, oh no, I felt bad for you and your listeners about, or maybe it's exciting. Watch this train wreck. I have been always so incredibly bad with money. And even if people talk about it, I just get an immediate lobotomy where I'm just like, oh, like it seems boring and lifeless. And I don't understand, like, and I didn't used to do budgets at all. I was just like lit. Like my mom nailed it. I used to be so offended that she would say to people like, Lauren just doesn't know how, just everything's about today, nothing about tomorrow. And I was like, that's mean. I don't understand it, but it's mean. And now I realize it's very true. And I will spend what I have. Like I used to say, it's like when I got money, it's like I'm on fire. I gotta like get it off me. Like so it. I just didn't. And then I have a friend. I didn't realize you were in finance. I should have been reaching out to you. But I have a friend who works in finance now. She's admin assistant now. She's made her way up and she's got a bigger position. But she was the one who used to be like, "What are you going to do, Lauren? Like, what is the plan? Like, you've got to start thinking ahead and thinking about a 401k." And I've got one, but I've just never checked it. It's through, I think it's through SAG after or something.
Could be. I mean,
See,
I can look into that for you. The thing your friend mentioned about
thank
SAG
you.
after and them being, worrying about the plan not being there. The pension plan itself, like you can go to this site and see its funding level. Like have they put the money in that they needed to, and has it
Yeah.
performed the way it should? It's about 79.1% funded from what I could tell. So above 100 is good. 79 is not catastrophic. It's not like you're a steel worker in the 70s or worked at Eastern Airlines in the 80s. Like those are when the plans go away. The government takes them over, and you get paid pennies on the dollar, and it's not good. So I do think the plan's probably going to be there and be viable for you. Um,
I hope
but
so.
the
I also don't plan on retiring, It's like my business is such, you just keep going.
so that is my next question: do actors ever willingly retire?
I I I never hear people. I just hear people leaving the business because there's not enough money. And I just got off the phone with my manager, and it used to be when that she would kind of like, "Oh, it's great," but it is a known thing that people are not making as much money anymore. It's not the same. Like I used to get I do a lot of guest star stuff, and I would get a guest star spot for like, I don't know, 12 to, once it used to be you had a quote and they have to meet your quote. They don't do that anymore. Now everybody who does a guest star or reoccurring, which is like your guest star but you come back,
Right.
and it's still like $7,000 to $10,000, which after everything is taken out of it, it's about $3,000 or $4,000, which is jarring when people are like, "Look at you! I saw you on Abbott Elementary," and I'm like, "I barely made rent."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, and that's it.
but I love it.
Is that some of that? Is that a function of kind of new media with Netflix and other players in there driving down the cost of
I think
labor?
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And she were also saying that because I was saying, do you think that a lot of my friends feel like that you age out of the business as well? They don't have as many roles for when you're older. And we both were saying, like, well, no, there's still roles because TV seems to be for old people, like the only people that watch actual TV. So there's roles there. There's just not a lot of money anymore. And that won't stop me because I'm going to still be doing it because I've never made a decision based on, when it comes to my livelihood and how I spend my life, I don't make the decisions on money. I just, and I regret it. I'll look around and go, God dang it, this car's embarrassing. I should have made a little more money. Like, but it's just not how my mind works.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, so my brother, obviously, is an artist. And so but
Yes.
he's leaned on us as family to kind of get that advice. And it's something too, I always tell people that like, even if it was, if you got your college degree, it doesn't, you probably never took anything in financial management. In high school, if you took anything, it
Oh,
was probably like writing checks, which people don't even do anymore. So, I mean, I think I always tell people to not be ashamed that they don't know money because it's never really been taught in a meaningful way in this country. And it's not something that people inherently necessarily have that skill set to be able to manage money.
I just think it's too bad though. It seems like a real, I remember when it first hit me about how little I understood and also how, well, yeah, how little I understood and what shame I had around it too. I just thought it was always so, because my parents were so obsessed with money. My rebellion was to say, well, not me. Like I'm going to date somebody. If he's got money, forget it. Like I don't want anybody who's put that first, because clearly they're, Satan's helpers caring about money. I do not believe that now,
Right.
but I definitely was a little rebellious about, I'm an artist, where I'm going to hang out with everybody who lives in a bus. And now I'm like, ew, I don't want to go on that bus.
Yeah.
Looks filthy in there. So I've changed and I have a kid. So I feel like as a single mother, I deeply regret, like, like I think I've done well in my career. I feel proud. I feel respected, all that kind of stuff that you'd hope for. Yet my son, I think I mentioned this to you, this is about 3 or 4 years ago, um, he thinks that we're the poorest people in Santa Monica, basically. And he was like, someday I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to get you out of here, Mom. I was like, oh my God, what after school special did he hear that on?
Yeah.
And I realized, oh, he thinks this is because we're not in a house. I've never been a homeowner. And it's like that part, I wished I had it a little more together for a kid, that I could provide, a little, but he's fine.
Do you
He's
do
fine.
you
He's
get
okay.
any money, any support from his father?
No. Oh, I do now. I shouldn't say that.
Okay.
It just started in the last 2 years, but my shame about money was so deep. That when we divorced, I was on looking and people were like, you better, he's at fault. He's got to help, and he was married and having another baby and stuff. They're like, you got to get what you deserve. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about money with him. I want it all to be mine. I don't want to I don't want to take money from him. I was so angry, and had such bitterness about it all. I don't anymore. I'm very happy and non-bitter, as you can probably tell by my deep voice. But I take money now, and now I'm like, why didn't I do it sooner?
Yeah.
Why did I feel like taking money was somehow me not being in control? Like I wanted to have like control. I'd rather be poor and have control over my life than taking money and be somebody's bitch.
Well, and you also the
Pardon
other
me.
part of it too is I think have you ever thought about living, buying a place in LA? And the flip end of it is you're in one of the most expensive markets in the country. Could you do your job? Like, how do you source jobs nowadays? Are people coming to you or are you still reading for parts? And could you live, I don't know, somewhere in a lower cost of
I
living
could.
area and make that work? And is that something you've thought about doing after your son's off and out of the house?
Absolutely. This is not definitely Santa Monica was not my choice. I moved in with my ex now, and he had a kid that was in school. So we lived here because it was close to his school. And I remember it was like not my kind of community. It was too much based on wealth and spending money. Like I'm a bit more of a hippie. Like I like some nature. I like some, I wouldn't mind a goat or a chicken, but a cheap one, of course. But in buying a house or buying something here, for 1 year, I thought about it when I was first married, and we talked about it, and it absolutely, even then, was I. I never have made enough money to come close to buying a place in California. It's unbelievable how expensive it is. And even though I feel successful here, and that's true for a lot of my friends, it's all my married friends have been able to combine incomes. If I had two incomes, it'd be a very different situation, very different.
Right.
And even I remember going to the Y when I joined the YMCA. They have a membership that's for single parents, and that I was like in tears about that. I was like, finally, somebody's. I'm getting a little bit of like, if it's just one of you, you can pay $25 less. I'm like, I appreciate that because the rest of the world doesn't operate that way. If I go on vacation, I still have to pay so we don't get to do those kind of things because of just being a one income family. But living outside of Santa Monica, hell yes. I am so looking forward to, and I'm always telling Leo, we go to town, I'm like, you see that house right there? We could live there for the same amount we pay in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
But just so he knows, like, it's not that we don't have any, we could have a different lifestyle, but I thought I had to be near the business. You don't anymore, but I'd still have to fly in because things are shot here.
Right.
But you can be anywhere. You just would have to fly in and find a place to stay. And I'm just waiting for Leo to get done with school here, and then I'm gonna go live in a shack in Alaska.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I do think that's one of the most, well, I don't think you'd want to do Alaska because the cost in and out flying would be too expensive, but somewhere,
You see, thank you. I appreciate that advice.
yes,
This podcast is paying off for me already.
somewhere.
Alaska off the
I
list.
think some, so our listeners are in Washington, D.C., the kind of DMV area, also very high cost of living. And then I do work with like the friends and family. So I have a half a dozen companies I work with in Indiana. So, very different economics of like what our parents probably bought those homes for $80,000, or who knows what it
Yeah.
was. And they still, on a relative basis, aren't that much. But the cost to entry of buying a home is such that it's just so onerous in these big metro areas, I think that can be really problematic. Okay,
Totally.
so
Hudson. Yeah, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
no, I was gonna say, what about, so this is where I kind of want to getting close to wrapping up. Do you have any financial questions for me? So things you came into this saying, okay, I'm going on a financial wellness webinar. I don't quite know why. What are the things that I've always wanted to ask that maybe I haven't or thought maybe I should?
I just don't. That's a good one. I'm not sure if I'll be able to say this as simply or have it because I'll be thinking it out right now. Um, I know for me, when I have my friend who worked in finance would start to go over things with me, I'm like, I'll feel like it's too late to turn this gigantic vessel of a lifetime and career around. You know what I mean? Like I've been doing it a certain way and I'd love to do it differently. But people are like, you got to have income coming. You need to have the passive income or find ways to, and I know all these things, but to find the time and to try to figure out how to change things, or people just take $25 a week and put it in savings, like that kind of stuff. Like, I guess I'm, I'm, I just think it's so different to be an artist, to make money that way. Is there really a way for when I go months sometimes without working, and I have to bring in just enough money, I'll, sell some paintings or something to make rent. But is there really a way to save money or to make more money? I mean, to manage money differently when you don't have that much
I
anyway.
think there was like three questions in there. So the one is like, or that you were alluding to, is people will always say like save a little, at everything you make. And I think the younger you are, the better that works. That if you're 23 and you're saving $50 a paycheck or whatever it is, that does really build up over time. That being said, it's not as if it's too late. There's still, the ability to save, but where a lot of people get in trouble is I think you kind of have lifestyle creep that people like you were alluding to, flying first class. It's like, well, things were really good. I could afford it now, but could I afford it for my kind of future self? And it's that denial of the future self, having to deny this service that, yeah, I can afford it today, but it's coming at the cost
This
of
one, can
what?
I just clarify for my own ego?
Yeah.
I never pay for first class. They fly you first class when you work for
Oh,
TV.
that changes everything
They
then.
used to.
Yeah.
Just want to say, just so you know, I'm not blowing it on that.
Yeah.
I like to, blow money on like art supplies. But yes, okay, but yeah, that makes
So,
sense. Totally. Like lifestyle. I have friends who have to keep maintaining a certain lifestyle. Like I have a used car now, that kind of stuff. I have made some adjustments, but yeah,
yeah, and
okay.
I think LA to me, like, and this is as the outsider, I don't want to offend any LA people, but it's the definition of mission creep, right? Like, when I go out there and I'm driving around and everybody's got this dope car, and you see the driveways they pull into, and you're like, what? This doesn't add up. What's going on here? Like,
Same.
so that's you see more of that there than I think I'd see it here in DC, or certainly than you'd see in Indianapolis. But I think even in Indianapolis,
Totally.
massive. All my friends have big, massive pickup trucks, and they're beautiful. But it's like, well, wait a second, one, are you affording the payment or are you actually affording the car? Because a lot of times, if they looked at the cost of just paying cash for that car, they couldn't do it. Versus they're like, well, I think I can eke out that payment, but that's coming at the cost of not saving for the future. And then I think too,
Right.
if you have, like you said, you're just rolling off a great year. So if let's say you cleaned up your financial house with okay, I had a great year. So any debts I kind of incurred and that sort of thing, I'm free and clear of those. The key is to really kind of have like 3 to 6 months of expenditures sitting in an account that you don't
I
touch.
know, I know. I've never been able to do. See, I had that. I know we have to, but I live by 3 months. I have 3 months rent saved, and then what happened was I thought for sure that I was going to get this one job, and so I started betting against that. And then my car, I do have an old car, and I had to put $4,000 worth of work in it, and that has thrown me for the last 3 months where I'm like, wow, I thought I had this all figured out, and now I'm back to month to month.
Yeah.
And there's always work coming up, but it's like I continue to work, but it's never, once I blew that savings, I couldn't quite keep it there. And I want to go over, I will off the air want to ask you about like to look at my for like to see what I have in retirement. I don't even know
Yeah.
because I don't, again, I don't think about
Well,
it.
there's it's supposed to be like a three-legged stool. So for you, the SAG-AFTRA pension would be one leg of that for retirement. Social Security is the other. So with your 1099s, when you go file your taxes, you're paying, and the difference is since you're self-employed, you're paying both the employer and the employee piece into Social Security.
Yeah,
So that's
right.
considerable. But that will be there too in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not to the same extent that it is today, but that's the second leg of the stool. And then the third leg is kind of the savings piece, the passive income piece. And that's something that even if you start chipping away at it now, because as you said, you're never going to fully retire. So there'll always probably be some acting, writing, producing income coming in, but that will help,
Right.
those big waves then can kind of be smoothed out with some of that other passive
Are
income
you
that
allowed
comes
to
in.
take can you take the retirement before you're and still work?
Oh yeah. So the question is whether you should, and that's another offline discussion. So like let's say you take
Okay.
retirement early. So at age 62 is the earliest you could do it with Social Security. I'd have to look at the SAG after plan, but what you're doing is you're reducing your future benefits. So for every year you file early, you reduce your benefit by 8% on Social Security. So what that means is everyone assumes they're going to die before they do. And so are your birth mom, do you have kind of the family health history and all that stuff?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. Are you asking what my prediction is of how
Yeah,
long I'm
how
going to
how long
live?
you got, Lauren?
I feel like I got a good 2 weeks.
Two, 2 to 3
No,
weeks.
maybe more. 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, I don't want to sound cocky. Yeah, who knows? I mean, I have health stuff too, but I don't think about, I just plan on being a vampire or something like that. I don't really think about death as much as I probably should. Thank you. But yeah, I guess I would live till 80. I don't
So
know.
you'll probably live a lot longer than that. I mean, unless there's something I don't know. But there's, I would say if you look at it though, people assume they're going to die too young, and if you file early, every year after about age 79 and a half, you'd be losing money on that strategy of filing for Social Security earlier. So, in someone like yourself who hasn't had the opportunity, you're playing catch up, right? You haven't had the opportunity, and you can generate income between ages 62 and 70 working, presumably. Then it may
Yeah,
not make sense from a tax planning standpoint and from that passive income that would come in. You might extend your Social Security by making it bigger by delaying 3 years and then getting it at age 70. So that's something you don't want to just willy nilly be like, I'm going to take it. You want to go through and talk to someone like me or your friend to do a full on analysis to be like, okay, this I'm kind of locking in for life on this. This is big to make sure it makes sense.
right. Yeah. No, I never even think about taking that. I always think I like the challenge of trying to figure out like, hey, what organ could I sell? No, but I'm so used to being kind of scrappy like that I never think that suddenly something's going to save me or make my life. I never had a man took care of me or anything like that. So I don't, even the idea of, and I'm not anti-government or anything, I'm a big old Democrat liberal, but clearly, did I just lose all your audience by saying I was a
It's
liberal?
a DC audience, so I don't think so. It's kind of a
Oh, I'm
company
cool.
town, but
I'm
my
cool.
Indiana clients, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but I'm a Hoosier,
That's true.
even though they're like, you weren't very positive about all the people that went to North Central.
Well,
Sorry,
just Jared
it
Fogle.
wasn't. I can't believe you put him in the list. I think he's got to go off the list, Mark. I don't know if he's not our finest. I sat next to a background performer shooting hacks the other day in Vegas. He's from Indianapolis, and I was like, that guy was cool. I don't If I could remember his name, I'd say we have him. He's a stand-up comic. Oh God, I just didn't do any favors for him right now, or
Maybe
you and
we
your
could we could
podcast by
dub it
bringing
in
that up.
later. I don't know if
Thanks,
yeah.
thanks. Yeah, Roger Sampson. Yeah, I just made that up. It's not his name.
Well, okay. Well, so here's kind of my normally I rap with some music lyrics because I like music and there's so many songs about money. And My memory of you
Yes, there
also
is.
is heavy in David Bowie. That was like your record collection on 71st. So there's
Deep.
two songs, not a ton of money stuff that had great lyrics from that
Yeah,
end.
that's why things have gone wrong for me because he was always
He
my
wasn't teaching you.
my
So I
idol.
have lyrics. Would you like me to
No,
read the lyrics, the partial lyrics from Fame or Changes?
do fame, I think. I don't I
Okay.
yeah.
So Fame, it goes like this. Let's see. Fame makes a man take things over. Fame lets him lose hard to swallow. Fame puts you there where things are hollow. Fame, not your
Yeah.
brain, it's just the flame that puts your change to keep you sane. Fame, what you like is in the limo. Fame, what you got is no tomorrow. And
Hello.
fame, what you need, you have to borrow.
You have to borrow.
Yeah.
Amen, brother Mark.
So
Amen.
David did teach you something, I guess, but just in his own special way.
And I took that lesson very, I took it to heart because I've definitely lived by that. Thank you for that was a really kind thing to do to end with Bowie. Thank you.
Certainly,
That was
always.
sweet.
Well, Lauren, I want to thank you for being my guest on the show and sharing your jagged path with us. While most of our listeners aren't actresses, they do share similar changes in employment and career paths. And I'll want to thank you, and hopefully we make it all work out and we can get that guy dubbed in with his name at some point.
I'm going to be on that. Don't you worry. I'm going to put any jobs that come my way to the side so I can spend more time on figuring out what the guy's name was. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so
Listen,
much.
anything for the Izoviches.
Oh,
Good family.
thank you.